Hello, everybody. I am back with my game from round 5 of the 2022 Grand Pacific Open. Um, as a recap, I was at this point sitting at 3.5 out of 4, managing to win my previous round. Did I win it? Was that? Sorry, I recorded that video a day or two ago. I'm trying to remember. Sorry. Round 3. Oh wait, no, round 4. Yeah, sorry. So yeah, I won round 4. Sorry about that. Okay, so yeah, so this was round 5. This was round 4 was in the morning of that day, and then round 5 was in the evening. I was pretty tired. This was the third day of the event, and it was a second round, and starting to get pretty tired. My opponent was Trevor Yonkman, rated 1491. He was about my age, probably a little bit younger. Yeah, probably maybe 5-7 years younger or so. And he's been doing pretty well lately. I noticed his last tournament, I think he got third place, and he was a score of 4.5 out of 6. In the previous tournament, he was 4 out of 5, I think. So he's been doing really well lately. And in this tournament, obviously he was doing well too because he had 3.5 out of 4. He had some good wins against some strong players. Yeah. So before we begin, I thought I will edit this video now and include some footage or photos of the event. I'm not sure if I'm going to keep the voice rolling while I show that. I might. So I'm not sure what I'm going to show because I will edit it at a future date. But I like to kind of intersperse some of the B-roll of just what the venue kind of looks like, and I think it just adds to the experience a little bit. Okay, so yeah, let's get going. Whoops, I'm in the wrong window. Here we go. Okay, so e4, c5, knight f3, g6. So we have the second hyper accelerated dragon. Actually, the first might have just been an accelerated dragon, if I think. But yeah, they were both accelerated dragons of some form in the tournament. I forget what round the previous one was. Let me take. I've got my score sheets here. Although it might have been round 3 where I lost my score sheet. Was the other one? Yeah. Anyways, this was the second one of the event, and as I mentioned in that video, I've been doing. I had done a fair bit of work on my accelerated dragon, so I didn't mind seeing it. So d4, c takes, knight takes, bishop g7, c4, Maroczy-Bind variation, knight c6. These all kind of transpose. He played knight f6 and knight c3. And here there's, if I remember correctly, there's two main moves. There's d6, which is the main line, and there's knight g4, which is the second main line, and not as popular, but seen a fair amount. Online, I would say I see knight g4 maybe like 30% of the time or so, but I actually find that quite a kind of a fun line to play. So I was kind of hoping, I'm like, hey, oh man, I hope he plays knight g4. That would be fun. And he played knight g4. So I'm like, oh yeah, okay, cool. And yeah, I was all ready to go. So I was whipping out my moves here. So was my opponent. What I used to do in tournaments was I would kind of like take my time and not really. I would think a little bit, maybe like 30 seconds to a minute or so, sometimes even longer, even if I knew what I was going to play, just to kind of settle down. And also, I don't know, I don't know, just make my opponent think that maybe I don't know like that I'm not 100% sure or so. But lately I haven't been doing that. I play pretty quickly, pretty immediately after. Like my opponent will make a move, and if I know what I'm going to play, I'll very quickly double check that I'm not screwing anything up. Otherwise, I'll just play it right away. So I might spend maybe like 10, 15 seconds as opposed to 30 seconds to a minute like I had previously. Basically, just to save time. These things add up. If I spend 1 minute on every move in the opening, that's 10 minutes that I could have used in the end game later on, right? Throat's already going. Okay. So I took knight takes d4, and the only move here, queen d1, which when you play online, it doesn't really, it's kind of confusing here. Like it feels like you can't really take the knight because you don't really think about just playing queen d1 again. So if you don't know this, it could be confusing. But yeah, so I took queen d1. And then my opponent played e5. And I thought for a very long time here. This is actually the second main line, but I'm not that familiar with it. I mean, I am a bit more now after the game. And I've seen it before, but it's fairly rare. The main line here is actually knight e6, which is it's a weird move, but it's the main line, and this is what I had most of my knowledge with. Yeah, so the e5 threw me off a little bit, and I had to just kind of recalibrate when he played it. Bishop d3, but I ended up playing against it perfectly. Like I played pitch perfect. So, okay, bishop d3, d6, castles, and then I played rook c1. The idea behind rook c1 is, I'm not sure how much I should reveal, but yeah, it's basically, we want to move the rook here first because eventually our light squared bishop on d3 will go to b1. It'll just kind of get out of the way if it, and we that's why we want to play rook c1 so that our rook isn't trapped in the corner. Okay, so yeah, so I played rook c1, and then I thought, I wonder if he's going to play f5. Just because it's aggressive, And I thought he might play f5 here. And I thought it might be annoying. If he does play f5, it might be annoying. But if I navigate it correctly, probably it's not good for black because his king is airy now. And if I rip open the center, yeah, his king gets exposed. And yeah, so I thought I could navigate the waters of f5. And he did. He ended up playing f5. So f5 is not main lines. I think when I looked at this after the game, I think there's a lot of moves that black can play here. I forget. I mean, this actually, yeah, there's not really much theory here in this particular variation. I think the computer it might have suggested like bishop e6. Excuse me, bishop e6. Or getting the queen off the back rank, something like that. But yeah, so f5, and yeah, I thought for a while here, and I didn't. So I played a bit of a mistake. The computer wanted me to just simply take the pawn, and if he recaptures, it's not super clear, but I think, yeah, we could probably even just take the knight now. Something like this, and black's pawn structure is kind of terrible, and his attack against us is kind of dissipated as well. I think we could just take the knight. If we don't take the knight, maybe even just immediately knight d5. and then we just tuck back something like this, and black is still has an exposed king. So, but what I did was, and I know this looks weird, I thought I was being kind of smart with it, but yeah, it wasn't the best move. So I actually took the knight on d4. I know I'm giving up a bishop for a knight, but and he recaptured. But I thought that I was just completely disrupting his pawn structure in the center, and his king is still exposed. And then I played knight d5. But the thing is, I could have basically achieved the same thing if I had taken on f5 first. And then again, as I say, I still could have taken here. But now the I think the difference is if I take here first, he gets to keep his f pawn. So, like, maybe even just plays f4, for example. Okay, so it was not the best move to take on d4, but he played a weird move here, but he thought for quite a long time, by the way, and then he played king h8. Yeah, probably not the greatest move, but at the same time, I kind of understand it because I was deciding here, like, what do I do now? For me, for white, and so I kept looking at ideas like, okay, maybe queen b3 type ideas, because its king is exposed. Maybe I can push c5 and bishop c4, something like that. So I understand why he might want to get off of that diagonal. I played b4. Computer says this is a bit of a mistake. I just, Maroczy bind, I didn't really know what to do, but I thought, well, let's just get more space and let's try to beat black to the punch so that he can't really disrupt us with a minority attack here. So yeah, I played b4. The computer still wants me to take on f5. It wants me to, it really doesn't like that f pawn, that f5 pawn. So e5 was best. He took on e4, which the computer doesn't like. I'm not quite sure. Or I can't quite remember why not. Yeah, probably it wants to, again, play f5, I'm guessing. Probably wants to do something like this. Okay, bishop takes, bishop f5. I played rook e1, which is, computer says is a slight inaccuracy. I think the computer just wants to trade bishops here. But rook e1 I thought was, at the time, it's just a very small inaccuracy, but I thought it was kind of nice. He played rook f7. I traded bishops now. Then I played a4. So a4, it seems like I'm just getting more space, but it's actually more important than that because black is threatening b5, right? If I don't play a4, b5 is a big problem for me. Like very, very big problem. So I played a4 to prevent a5, whoops, and then he played queen h4. And I hadn't considered this move. It never crossed my mind. It was not on my radar, and it scared me. And the more I looked at this, and I thought for a very long time here, and the more I looked at it, the more scared I got. I often lose games like this where my opponent brings in a knight or a queen on my king side and just attacks and I lose. I'm curious how long I thought on this. Let's see. Yeah, I thought for 9 minutes on my reply. There were a lot of moves to consider. I was considering rook c2 for a long time. That was a very strong consideration because I'm defending the f2 pawn, and then I'm also preparing to double up the rooks. And I was, whoops, and then I yeah. And then the only other move really is g3, which is what I ended up playing. But I had to calculate things here because it's I had to make sure like queen h3 followed by rook h5 is not a problem because it looks scary, you know. So I just had to be really cautious here. So but I did play g3. He played queen h6, which the computer says is fine. I thought he might play queen h3, and he considered it, but it's not. It doesn't really. He doesn't have time to make the two. Like if he goes queen h3, I think I can just play knight f4. Yeah. So it doesn't really do anything for black. So sorry, that's not what he did. Okay, then he played queen h6. Again, I had to consider a lot of moves here, because rook h5 could be a problem. But I ended up playing f4. It makes a lot of sense, opening up the second rank so I can defend it with like rooks and queens. Now I have a lot of safety. My opponent played g5 here, which is a headache move, you know. And I played the best move by far. The move I played is suddenly winning for white. And I analyzed the game with my opponent afterwards, and he was scared that I was going to play this move, and he didn't see it, you know, when he played g5 at the time. Let's see how much time do we have at this point. Yeah, we had a lot of time. Yeah, so I played queen g4. It was the first move I really realistically considered, but there's a lot of like decent moves here, I think, such as maybe just taking, which might be good as well. Possibly bringing in the rook and having time for that. But yeah, queen g4, it just made the most sense because we're attacking his rook and then we're also threatening to just take on g5 at the same time. So I played queen g4. And then he thought for a very long time here. He thought he went from 40 minutes to 27. So he thought for 13 minutes. About a third of his time he spent in the next move. And I understand why, because he's kind of desperate, and he played a move that, you know, is kind of game changing. He played d3, and that in turn made me have to think for a while because there's a lot to consider. At the end of it, I thought I could probably play anything though. Like if I thought I could just play rook cd1. And then, yeah, he could maybe retreat the rook, but then I'll grab this d pawn. And I could have probably, there's probably a lot of different ways to deal with it, but I just took the rook. He played d2, rook cd1, he queened, and then rook takes. So we basically won a pawn in that exchange. Okay. He played bishop d4 check. King g2, rook g8. So obviously I like my position here. I am up a pawn, and black's pawns are terrible. But he does have a bishop. He's got a good bishop. But I'm also circling his king. My king is safer than his. Yeah, so here I was deciding, okay, rook e6 or rook e7. It's tough to choose. I ended up playing the best move, which was rook e6, but I had to be careful of, well, maybe not super careful, but I kept looking at queen h5, and then letting his queen infiltrate. Trying to do an arrow here. Oh, that's worse. That's a bad arrow. Anyways, yeah, I played rook e6. He played queen g7. I played rook e7. He played queen a6. And yeah, so then I took the pawn because I suddenly realized, if I go pawn hunting or something like this, suddenly g5 and I think I'm screwed. Like, then I think black just guarantees himself a perpetual, right? Because then the queen comes into h3, and yeah, and then I'm actually I'm just getting mated. So yeah, I didn't. I'm like, okay. Let's just get rid of that pawn before I forget about that. So I took the pawn. Rook takes g5, and I thought for a while on this move. Yeah, I went from 32 minutes to 24, so I spent 8 minutes, which was a lot at this point in the game. It looks like white is completely crushing, and white is crushing, but it's not as simple as it looks. Like it just looks like, oh, this is just completely winning, and it is. But how do you do it? How do you convert it? Right? Like I looked and I looked, I couldn't see anything. Like these checks don't really do anything, right? Same thing here. This really doesn't do anything. I don't have time to bring in the knight. My queen's under attack. I got to be careful about his queen coming in. Yeah, so I ended up playing queen e6, which was fine. Basically just converting it to an endgame. So queen takes, rook takes. He played rook g6. I took. So yeah, I had calculated all of this basically, and I immediately played knight e7 because I had prepared this beforehand. So knight e7 is actually a fork. I call this an invisible fork because I think it's a good way to describe it, because we're attacking this pawn, but it's also forking the c8 square. Because there's not a piece on c8, but c8 creates yet another fork, and therefore it's a winning square. So I call this an invisible fork, and I mean it's not hard to see, but yeah, I had that plan, so I immediately played knight e7, king g7, knight c8. He played a5, and I said as soon as he played a5, I'm like, oh my god. Like I'm like, oh my god, did I blow the win? Like, is this like? I mean, I wasn't terrified, but I got really nervous. I'm like, oh boy, like I gotta be careful. I gotta be really careful here. And I think I played the only winning move in response. But yeah, I have to be careful here, right? I mean, and I could potentially even lose if I'm not careful. Like my knight could get dominated, and yeah. So I took, which was the only winning move. I think it's the only winning move. Bishop c5, king f3, king f6, king e4. I mean, I was still very confident that I was going to win, but I did have to be on the alert. I had to be careful here. Knight b6, bishop b4. You see what I mean? Like, you see what I mean? Like, we got to be really careful. So knight d5, bishop takes a5, knight f4 check, king f6, king d5. Yeah, and you'll see my plan here shortly. Bishop b4 defending his pawn, and then we have knight d3. Knight d3 allows me to trade off here, and then we have a winning pawn endgame. So bishop a3, c5, d takes e5. And here I thought for a little while. Let's see how long I thought for. Okay, never mind. I thought for just about a minute or a minute and a half. But, okay. Yeah, but I didn't immediately take. And I wonder if he thought I was trolling him. I explained to him after the game what I was thinking about. I really thought I thought longer than a minute, but yeah, so I did not immediately take because I thought, hey, maybe I just play king c4, right? And then just go after that bishop. And so I was thinking about that, but then I thought, oh, but then there is king f5, and then king e4, and yeah, then suddenly that might be a draw, and suddenly things just got really complicated, like unnecessarily complicated. So I was considering that. I was considering just going straight after his bishop because my knight is actually dominating the bishop, which is funny because Normally the bishop would dominate the knight when the knight is on the edge of the board like this, and the bishop is 2 squares away laterally. But it also works the other way, like as you can see here. So yeah. Anyways, so I just took this way. It's a simpler way. It's the much simpler risk-free way to do it. He doesn't take my knight because I'm just going to win the pawn endgame. I take this pawn, and then he resigned here, which I appreciated. I appreciate that he resigned because he could have played it out and if he wanted to be annoying, and I would still have to be careful because he does have a bishop, and I would have to be a little bit careful still, but he did resign. Yeah, and as I say, after the game, I analyzed the game with him afterwards in the Skittles room. He was a nice guy. Yeah, so just as a quick recap, yeah, I mean, we were evenly rated. He's on the upswing. He's been doing well in tournaments, and actually, he ended up finishing the tournament in 3rd place. He won his next 2 games. No, wait, that can't be right. This is the 5th round. Yeah. Sorry. Well, he won his next game, and he finished in 3rd place with a score of 4.5 out of 6. So he finished well. Yeah, and it was this accelerated dragon Maroczy bind variation. He played e5, which is totally playable, but I wasn't super familiar with it. I kind of forgot what I played against it, but I played against it perfectly. He played f5, which was a mistake. I should have taken, which was a mistake. And then, I mean, also, I think one of his big mistakes here was with g5. Because I think, was he already down a pawn here? No, it's actually equal material, but his position is not so great here. And then when he played g5, this just really made things really bad for him. Yeah. So at the end of this round, I was sitting at 4.5 out of 5, and I was just making my way up to the higher boards. This was, I forget. Whoa, okay, well, I can see here. This was board. I think this was about like board 4 or so. This was like from the top board. So I was close to the top board, and then, or no, was I right? No, I was right beside the top board. Yeah, no, this is like board 2, I think. Yeah, this is board 2. Yeah, this was definitely board 2, and yeah, what this meant is that in the next round, I was playing for 1st place, man. Yeah, so next round, I'm playing for 1st place. The championship, if I won, it would be clear 1st. I would get a trophy, prize money. I'd be in a magazine, all the glory, right? And did I win? Maybe. Is it a Cinderella story? Maybe. Is it a sob story? Maybe. You'll have to wait to find out. Maybe it was a draw. Maybe I got 2nd. Who knows, right? Only I know. But yeah, so I was having a fantastic tournament, man. 4.5 out of 5. There were in my section, there were 77 players. And next round, which was the following morning, I would be playing on board number 1 for the championship, which it's unbelievable because it's been so long since I had a good tournament, like years. It's been years since I've had a good tournament, and I was finally having a fantastic tournament. 4.5 out of 5 in the under 1700 section, 77 players. Yeah. So stay tuned for the final round, the championship round, round 6 for the championship. That's coming up soon. Thanks for watching.